Welcome to episode 96 of the Camerosity Podcast, the world's first and only open source film and digital photography podcast. My name is Mike Ekman, and we're back for another exciting episode. I'm still personally reeling from the recent death of my childhood idol Ozzy Osbourne, but I suppose the best way to drown your sorrows is with a bit of gas indulgence. For this episode, we reach into the suggestion box and discuss a brand of cameras that we've thus far neglected on the show, AGFA. With exciting models like the Karat, Flexolette, and Ambisolette, we should have a good amount of gas for you all. Before we get started, let's do some introductions. Joining us from Yellow Springs, Ohio, is our resident gas master, Paul Rybold. Hey, Paul, how has business been lately?
Business sucks. So buy early and buy often. That's all I got to say.
Also, from Gainesville, Florida, and the land of 100-degree temperatures is Anthony Rue. Hey, Anthony, how's the weather been down there?
It is perfect if you want to develop color film just by leaving your chemicals sitting outside on the front doorstep, because you'll hit 104 degrees, no problem, consistent, don't need sous vide, just let them sit outside on the door.
Next up, from Saskatchewan, Canada, is a man who doesn't like slightly angled viewfinders. It's Stephen Strangways. Hey, Stephen, does this mean there is an Olympus camera you don't like?
Well, maybe not one that I'm completely in love with, but I still like it enough to own it.
And finally, from Sydney, Australia, is Theo Panagopoulos, whom I didn't write a clever intro for. Hey, Theo, where have you been lately?
Busy. Considering this is AGFA and another icon passed away this week, does this make this episode the AGFA Mania episode?
I think it does. All right, I can see we have some guests in the waiting room, so let's use that fancy Admit All button I discovered during the last show.
Oh, we got a lot of yellow shirts today.
A lot of yellow shirts today.
Well, it's that time of year.
We have... Wait, where's AJ?
Hey, guys. How are you?
He's got his on.
I've got mine on.
So do I. 4 of us are wearing Camerosity Podcast t-shirts today. AJ, Pat Casey, and Will Pinkham, all wearing our classic Kodak yellow and red shirts. Also joining us, looks like we have Zack from Fort Wayne, Indiana. How you doing, Zack?
Doing good. How are you?
All right, first-time caller?
Yes.
All right, well, welcome to the show. So we talked about covering AGFA.
Hang on, we've got Fernando.
Oh, Fernando. I'm sorry. Fernando from Germany.
Hello.
I love how often you join us despite this being the middle of the night for you.
I didn't have much to sleep.
Me too. All right, so we kind of talked already. We wanted to talk about AGFA today. It came from one of the suggestions. I think it might have been Johnny Martyr. So I'm going to definitely have to shame him for not coming on, and he suggested it. But I thought about it. It's like, we really haven't talked about them too much. They do get brought up here and there. I know we've discussed the Karat cameras in the film quite a few times. I can see Fernando's got a Flexolette up in front of him. I have one here too. Very interesting, cool little twin lens camera. That's got a very unique appearance that very few people ever did, but they are a lot of fun to shoot. We also have Dave Palumbo joining us. Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Just unmuting myself. Hey, everybody.
How you doing? All right, we thought we were having some technical problems getting you on, but you're here now.
I don't use Zoom often enough to ever remember how to do it, so.
No worries. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hey, everybody. My name is Dave. I've been a listener for a couple of years now, follower of the blog before that, but never managed to actually make the time slot work until Paul reminded me that you guys are recording, and so I'm happy to join tonight.
Was there anything particular maybe in the last episode that piqued your interest?
I mentioned to him, I just sold my S2A that I had, and I was frustrated that I missed all the discussion that you all were having last episode about that camera, because I actually wrote a 35 mmC article on comparing the Hasselblad and the S2A. So it was kind of hard to contribute to a conversation that happened an episode ago, but it was fun to listen to. And I unfortunately, I sold mine recently just because it was kind of redundant and it was having issues, but great camera. And it's only because I kept the Hasselblad that I sold that one.
Well, we had a questions about that we didn't get resolved on the last episode, so we'll put you on the spot.
What's that?
Did the S2 magazines have an internal cloth shutter?
That was puzzling to me when I heard that, and I don't remember ever seeing that, but the magazines were built in a way that you couldn't take the dark slide out when it was removed.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe, but
he had to use a screwdriver to kind of trick it into thinking it was attached to the camera to get it to come out. So it's very plausible that it's there, just you never see it. I've never seen it either.
I would be kind of surprised, but I mean, he was describing it in a way that sounded like, okay, I guess I just never took one of these apart, you know?
Yeah, I got confused because I mean, you have the release latch for the back is the top of the dark slide.
Yeah.
So it has to be pushed in order to get it off. The back can't come off unless there's a dark slide.
My thought, this was something that I would have to listen to it more closely. Again, I was wondering if he was talking about the curtain that's in the back of the camera that faces the dark slide.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too.
Yeah.
That's possible. Because the only internal dark slide that I can remember were on some of the Kawas. Because it didn't physically have a dark slide.
Yeah. But no, I was a little puzzled by that, but I never took one of the backs apart, so I don't know for sure.
One of the more interesting internal dark slide mechanisms is the Bronica RF645, where it's actually the lens mount that actuates the dark slide because it's an interchangeable leaf shutter rangefinder. And as you mount the lens, as you twist it on, it retracts the dark slide. And as you untwist it to remove it, lets the dark slide swing back into place. Or not really swing, but slide back in because it's a shutter curtain, basically.
That's cool. I've never shot a Mamiya 6, but doesn't that have a similar mechanism so you can change the lenses?
It does. Ironically, that fooled me the first time I tried to play with it because it was engaged and I opened up the back and I was surprised to see a focal plane shutter because it's just a cloth curtain, just like you would think from a focal plane shutter camera. And I'm like, wait a minute. You know, I thought this was a leaf shutter because you can clearly see the speed ring around the shutter up front. And it just like kind of threw me for a loop. And then I realized that that's something you need to engage before you can dismount the lens so that you don't ruin the film. Similar to like a lot of other cameras like that.
The Mamiya 7, they've carried that through to the Mamiya 7 as well. And it's interesting when you actually engage and disengage that, it has a massive thump. Yeah, it's a man's camera, so you really hear it when it does it.
What do you mean it's a man's camera? I thought it was the best camera ever made. Can it be both?
It can be both. It can be both.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cameras that do that too. I, in fact, got messed up on a Koni Rapid Omega. It doesn't have a focal plane shutter, but it has like these two barn doors that you have to close. And I didn't realize, but I had shot an entire roll of film with the barn doors closed and got nothing but blank exposure. So sometimes that can work against you too.
Wait, Mike, was that the Omega Flex, the Koni, not the Rapid, but it was the Omega Flex, wasn't it? The funny Omega Flex.
For me, it was the Rapid Omega. And I found out that that's not supposed to happen. So I think mine was just broken.
Because the Rapids had a dark slide. The Rapid 200s, they had interchangeable backs, and there were dark slides. They were tiny little things. Smallest dark slide, I think, ever made.
I'm sure you're right because you'd know better than I would, but I'm certain there was a little knob on the side that had an open position that would close like a barn door.
Okay.
It had both because the one you're speaking of is so you could change lenses if you, for some reason, didn't want to put in the dark slide. So my memory is
it had both. It had both the baffle and the dark slide itself.
So in their effort to protect you, idiots like myself ended up losing a whole roll of film, but I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well, it was all interlocked, so you couldn't remove it if the dark slide was not, and so forth and so on. But
not to jump around too much, but I did remember one thing that I wanted to mention about the Bronica, the S2A, or any of the S Bronicas. I don't think that any mention was made really of the Zenzinon wide-angle lenses. You were talking about the Nikkor lenses and the Kawa. Was it Kawa that made a couple of? Kimura, that's right. That made a couple of lenses. Zenzinon also made a 40 and a 50, and they are both as small as the 80, and they're extremely good lenses. I just sold my 50, and I just mention it because they are hard to come by, but the fact that they're so small compared to just about any other wide-angle 6x6 lens is something that I thought was noteworthy about that system.
Yeah, the 40 and 50s are very rare.
Yeah, especially in the US, but cool lenses.
So Dave, you said that you sold your S2A in favor of your Hasselblad. Which Hasselblad do you have?
The 500 CM.
Okay.
So pretty, the standard, the classic.
Dave has been working on he has a set of zines that I just got all three of the three episodes, and I guess that you're working on the fourth one now.
Yeah, getting ready to send that off to the printer. Just a little, fun project.
They're very cool. They were the two of them were on abandoned buildings.
Yeah, the majority of them are going to be, they're all supposed to be kind of like things that are either fleeting or gone. And as I've gotten the opportunity to go and see and shoot in spaces like that, like buildings that are in no longer being used in any kind of a way, I've come to realize that oftentimes that's like a really short window of time before it becomes rebuilt into something or just flat out demolished or collapses. And so it's interesting I don't know why I always had this idea that places like that just kind of slowly decay for years and years and years, but the ones that I've found are.
You need to visit Gary, Indiana.
Oh, I mean, any place. This is the one thing is that I'm not a fence jumper. I always every place I go is with permission. But anybody who knows any place that I can get in there, I just went out to a couple places last weekend, and it's so much fun. I love just spending a day exploring an old building like that.
If you don't mind me asking, who are you using to publish your zine? I've been tossing around the idea of doing a Minox zine.
There's a printer called Mixam, Mixam, and you can do short runs for very reasonable prices. You can even do short run hardcovers for very reasonable prices, which
cool.
Like people I think are used to Blurb and places like that where you're going to pay like 70 or 80 bucks for like a one-off hardcover. At this place I think you can get something for like 15 or 20. But the soft covers, the ones that I sent to you, Paul, like those are 8.5 by 8.5. And I think that for an edition of 25 books, it's coming out to, I forget what it is, but it's very reasonable enough that you can sell them without having to, charge an arm and a leg for them.
Yeah, I thought they were actually. I just scratched my head when I got them because I couldn't figure out how you were able to sell them for that price.
Yeah, no, I mean they do good work, and I definitely recommend anyone who wants to do a short run print to check them out.
Well, I don't want to put Dave on the spot, but Dave's day job, if you want to call it a day job, is he's an artist. You do mostly fantasy art? Is that what you would describe it?
Yeah, a lot of I've been doing work for Magic the Gathering for about 17 years now. I've recently done a lot of stuff for Marvel trading cards. And other than that, it's a lot of publishing, like illustrated novels and book covers and things like that. Some comic book covers.
Do you tie the photography into it, or is that?
I think that one feeds the other, and it's something that I used cameras as a necessity as part of making my paintings. And then over time, I started just falling in love with photography and with cameras. And then I feel like one informs, like I learn a lot about one art form from practicing the other one.
Do you ever do any like album covers for bands?
Not really. Definitely none that anybody's ever heard of. Okay. No famous bands.
I just saw July 19th, Amon Amarth, which is like a Scandinavian Viking metal band, and all their album covers are like fantasy, hand-drawn, painted.
Oh, yeah.
Nordic ships sailing into Valhalla with Thor in the background with wielding a hammer of war.
I love that genre has a rich history of cool fantasy art covers.
All right. Well, while we were talking, we had Mike Litwin join us. Mike, welcome back. You've been on the show before, but it's been a while. How you been?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm only on chat, like on audio. I'm not on video. I'm not feeling well, so I'm just calling you guys from my apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm doing good, other than my health, but that's a long-term thing.
Was there anything AGFA related or any of the recent shows that you wanted to?
It's an AGFA show. I don't really do much in the way of AGFA, but I did pick up, and maybe in the future we could do a 126 show. because I picked up lately, because there's some really good thrift store. There's a really good thrift store that I use here in Winnipeg, and I've come across an AGFA 126 and a Zeiss 126. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I remember the 126 cartridge when it was introduced. I even was one of my first ever cameras that my parents bought me, an old Kodak, I think X15. I was very surprised to see an AGFA 126 and a Zeiss 126. But
it is curious that that was something Kodak created, yet nearly all, I shouldn't say all, but a lot of the German manufacturers did at least attempt to release. Like there's a Rollei SLR that's a 126 camera. Zeiss had was it a Contaflex 126?
Yeah, Contaflex 126.
Yeah.
The Rollei and the Contaflex both had interchangeable lenses, which
right.
was cool.
What's good about those today is because 126 film can be found, but it's almost always unusable because they made it with VPan, Kodak VPan, Verichrome, which generally does have a pretty good shelf life. So if you can find an unused cassette of 126 Verichrome pan, the great thing about the Rollei and the Zeiss cameras is they're one of the few ones that let you set complete manual exposure. So if you need to give it some extra light, you can. Whereas most of the other like the Kodak or the lesser brands, which there were a lot of those, almost all of them rely on some kind of single shutter speed or, a very limited range of automatic exposure modes. So it's difficult to get extra light to that film to try and make a usable image. But when you do find those Zeiss or Rollei cameras, they can be quite usable and they're a lot of fun to shoot.
Mine are just shelf queens. I don't care whether I remember taking pictures with 126 cartridges, and I'd rather forget. But for just the fact that Zeiss and AGFA made them was kind of surprising to me. So I'm happy to have them as shelf queens. I mean, they cost me $5 each, so it's not a big outlay in terms of money that I want to recoup. Get more of an experience out of it.
I'm trying to remember the Japanese 126 cameras. Were there any that weren't toy cameras? I mean,
Olympus made one.
Olympus did. Mm-hmm. Olympus had a Quickmatic, I think it was called.
Okay.
The Quickmatic. Another one, Canon had a couple of them, and one of them is really interesting. I've reviewed it before. Canon made it, but it was sold under the Bell & Howell name, called the Autoload 342. And it had something called they called it a Delta rangefinder. It wasn't a rangefinder in the traditional sense, but basically what it did is it controlled focus by tilting the camera. And there was a little ball bearing that would roll forward and backwards depending on where the subject was compared to the ground. It's completely bizarre, but it actually works. So if you're shooting at infinity, the camera is basically pointed parallel to the ground. As you focus close up, you have to tilt the camera down, which does screw up your composition, but that's how you change the focus on the camera. And as bizarre as it sounds, I have no idea why they would do that, as opposed to just using a traditional rangefinder or even guest focus. But surprisingly, it does work. So for anybody who just likes quirky cameras with oddball dead end designs, definitely check out the Bell & Howell Autoload 342.
What's Will holding up?
That's the Ricoh did one too, the 126.
Oh, that's right.
Flex.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
It's got interchangeable lenses as well.
Is it M42 or is it a different mount?
It's a different mount. It unscrews, the shutter stays on there, and then it just threads into this tiny mount. But I have the wide angle and I have the zoom.
That's cool. I don't remember.
Super cool.
I've seen one, but that's pretty unusual.
I don't know if people adapt the lenses. When I first got it, it came with both the lenses, but one of them is frozen. So I just went to go get the lens, and all the ones I could find were like really expensive. So I'm curious as to whether they're adapted to anything else. But
I'd be willing to bet Rare Adapters probably makes one if I had to guess.
Yeah.
It's an SLR, so it still has a fairly long flange distance, which would mean that an adapter to a digital mirrorless would be possible.
Yeah.
Well, does the entire lens remove, or does it leave some rear elements behind and only the front cell interchanges?
That's a good question. Look in the film compartment behind the shutter. Is there glass?
No, it's the whole lens comes out. So this is the normal lens.
Okay.
There's this back part. And the other ones are kind of the same. Yeah. But the lens protrudes like really far back.
Sure.
FPP is making that Fakmatic 126
I have one.
reloadable cartridge, but it doesn't work with everything.
No, it does work with more things than they say, though.
Yeah.
And in fact, I contacted them and I said, I think you guys are selling this thing short because it does work with a lot more models than they gave it credit for. But they were really, and I understand why they were, because they did respond. They basically said, we wanted to only say the models we were 100% absolutely sure this thing will work in without, any chance of whatever. Because it can be a little bit sketchy because you're loading in perforated 35 millimeter film into it. And those perforations can sometimes, I shouldn't even say sometimes, can often throw off the film advance on those cameras. So it does work best on cameras where you manually advance it with a lever. But like what were the Kodak ones, Paul, that had like a ripcord? Was that the Instamatics?
Yeah, they were the Instamatics.
They have it's literally a ripcord, like a lawnmower.
Spring driven.
Yeah, it's spring driven, but how you wind it is you pull this tab out of the bottom of the camera and it like this metal ribbon must tension a spring or something. Completely weird. I wouldn't try it in that.
And the plastic end always breaks off of that thing on the old ones.
Right. Well, Kodak also had one that was a wind up.
The Motormatic, I think. No,
that was 35 millimeter. The Motormatic.
No, there's a 126. It winds on the bottom, I think.
Yeah, it was on the bottom. Yeah, it was I might even been in the X series.
There were also a lot of 126 cameras that were very early motor drives, and good luck finding one of those that actually works.
And you got all these complicated cameras that were just at the mercy of a paper-backed bowed film that with no pressure plate that was good for an artistic statement, but not really very good for edge-to-edge sharpness.
Yeah. What Paul's referring to is those cameras didn't have a pressure plate to maintain perfect flatness on the film plane, because the film and what effectively would have been the pressure plate is just the back of the cassette. So there's a little bit of wiggle room where the film could curl and it falls in and out of the exact film plane. I do remember somebody saying, though, that certain brands were just better at it than others. Some used a thicker film that stayed flatter better. Maybe, I don't know. I guess that makes sense.
And then they improved it by going to a 110, which was also paper-backed, bowed film, and a smaller piece of film.
Yeah.
I guess it's better because there was less to bow.
Didn't Kodak famously try to match, especially the Ektars in the 50 and 60? Didn't they try to match the curvature of the film with the curvature of? I thought they were proud of that with the 50 and the 60 and the Pocket Instamatic.
Well, those were good cameras, and the Canon 110s also were very good cameras. But you still have the limitation of the paper-backed film. I mean, it was a smaller piece of film, so there was less bow that you're going to get, but still.
Right.
This is the wide angle lens for that camera. It's huge.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
I'd love to adapt it to something else. It's a 35 millimeter length.
Well, Will, are there is there f-stops on the lens?
No, the f-stops are on the camera.
On the body. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the body.
That'd make it tough to adapt that lens to anything else.
It'd be like a decal adapter kind of where you'd have to fabricate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that because I was thinking, oh yeah, there's no apertures on the lenses.
I just wanted to clarify. I thought it was an AGFA. It's actually a Voigtlander Bessie AK, but it is a 126. The interesting thing about the Zeiss, it's a Zeiss Icomatic A, and when I bought it, it had a flash. I got the flash with it. It's just a weird little 126 camera with a flash and a hot shoe. Well, a cold shoe, I guess. Well, no, it's a bit of a hot shoe because it's got three contact points on the hot shoe, and both of them have meters. Meter windows. So I guess they're either silesium or it must be silesium because I don't see battery compartments on these things.
I just pulled up a picture of that camera, and I would be shocked if that was made by Zeiss. That looks to me like a rebadged camera.
Well, it probably is.
Yeah.
It's just like it struck me, to see a 126 camera with the name Zeiss icon on it, and it was like $5. So what the hey, $5 with the flash.
I'm just looking at a Olympus Quickmatic 600 here, which is which struck me as, that's quite a nice camera to find with the 126. But if you really want to get yourself into a world of pain, try using this because it's not only is it 126, but it uses two different types of mercury batteries to actually power it. So,
Oh my God.
So it takes three batteries, and it's two different types between the three of them. So if you really want to give yourself a lot of pain,
one of
Wow.
those battery types might just be to fire the flash cubes on top, so you might be able to skip one of them.
That would be my guess too.
possibly, but it's very daunting when you look at the back of it.
That was the difference between magic cubes and flash cubes. Flash cubes had to have a battery to fire them, and the X cubes were fired by shorting them. So the X
Right.
cubes, X flash cubes did not need to have a battery, but
I didn't know that.
I'm sorry, I said that backwards. The magic cubes needed to have was a mechanical short. The flash cubes had to have a battery that triggered them.
I think it worked off of magic, Paul. That's
It
how
was
it works.
magic.
Yeah.
It was certainly magic if you happened to have one of them go off in your pocket.
Worked. Yeah. Was there a capacitor that's pre-charged or something in there probably?
I thought the thing that caused it to fire wasn't electrical, but some sort of mechanical.
Yeah, it's an impact. It's like a spring-loaded thing that
It's
hits
spring-loaded.
that. And
That's
Like a
that's
cap
it.
gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if
exactly.
anyone has seen it, but I think it's on a YouTube channel called Technology Connections. There's an episode about those flashes where they record the flashes going off at a extreme high frame rate, and they are fascinating to watch them go through the whole action. I don't know if anyone else has seen this.
I have. He's a very interesting guy. Just his whole, and he's into Christmas bulbs. He's got an interesting array of interests.
Yeah, I
and
watched an hour and a
refrigeration.
half long 2-part video that he did about dishwashers, and my partner
Yes.
will never let me forget it. She ribs me all the time for that. But man, I improved how I use my dishwasher tremendously thanks to Technology Connections.
Yeah.
The channel's called Technology Connections.
Yeah, he's in Illinois, so he might be just close.
Not too far away. Okay.
I also like him because I think he's got 3 or 4 Olympus pen cameras on his shelf behind him when he records. So I'm definitely a big fan.
Yeah.
And he's into electric cars and how to heat your house. He's an interesting array of stuff.
Yeah.
Anthony is showing a Rolly A26.
With the flash. Look, Theo, I should send this to you so you can use the flash.
Anthony, have you shot that camera? Have you used that camera?
I have not, because I'm a little hesitant because it has a roll of film in it, and it's a 126 roll of Kodachrome 64.
Oh yeah, you can take that out. You
Yeah,
can take that out. Just toss
I think
it.
you probably should just sacrifice that and then move on with your life.
Maybe it's still good.
Long time ago, Paul, you sent me a bag of some expired film you found, and there was some Kodak Color 2 126 film. I think the date was early to mid 80s. So I know C41 film doesn't last really long, but I thought maybe it was on the outer reaches of being usable. And I tried that in the Rolly 126 camera, and I got faint. I mean, you could kind of see it if you held it up to a really bright light, but my scanner was barely able to detect anything. So for anybody wanting to shoot 126 today, in my opinion, your only two bets are either to find some Verichrome pan original or get the Fakmatic and try to reload yourself. You got to use 35 millimeter film because you do have to have at least some holes. You could try unperforated film. It would physically fit, but I don't know that the camera would ever stop whining. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong, since this is now officially the 126 episode. I don't think you can put unperforated film on those.
Well, you could be absolutely hardcore and perforate the stuff yourself, build some little jig that perforates it at the right.
You'd have to figure out the exact spacing and a hole punch it or something.
And if you're hardcore, that's no problem.
Well, I think some people have actually done that. If I remember correctly, FPP at one point was selling correctly perforated film because 828 works the exact same way. There's a single perforation in 828 film, which ironically is also 35 millimeter wide too. So 126 and 828 film are very similar. Just, obviously the cassettes and the way that they're loaded are different. 828's a roll film.
I couldn't even figure out how to get this thing open. I'm sitting here looking at this. It's like a solid brick. Then I realized I need to put a video of this up on the Instagram or the Facebook page.
Well, that's neat.
Pull it out, and then there's a little button you push, and you pull it a little farther.
Yes.
And that releases the whole back.
The Rolleiflex SL26 is a reflex with Carl size optics. It's a beautiful camera.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. That's the one I tried shooting the expired Kodak Color 2 on. And while the camera worked great, you can choose any range of shutter speeds you want, down to 1 second, up to 1/500th, interchangeable lenses. I think, all 3 lenses that were made for it. Build quality on them is really good. But again, just finding film that's going to get you a decent image is not easy. And then when you do, if you're using regular 35 millimeter, you got sprocket holes rolling through one, half or one edge of your pictures, which some people like. Maybe you could incorporate that into your design, but for the most part, it's just not worth it.
But you guys missing the point here. It produces square results, which fit perfectly on Instagram with, effectively, the grungy filters that everybody wants. Come on, it's
no, Theo. Instagram isn't square anymore. They've changed that.
If you are just a consummate 126 user, what if you did this? You disengaged the camera's feeler so it would not, you'd have to roll the film manually and watch the number in the window. But if you disengaged the camera's feeler, wouldn't that somewhat solve the problem, or does that introduce a whole bunch of other?
I've tried that before, but that is coupled to the shutter.
I see. So it won't wind.
The feeler, right? No, it'll wind. It just won't release.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And on some cameras, either it won't wind or it will just continue winding forever.
Right.
But if that feeler is how it works, is the hole in the film allows the feeler to poke through it, and that feeler needs to be fully in the out position in order for the shutter to fire. And if it's pushed back because it's making contact with the film, then it won't allow the shutter to work properly. Now, that's not to say that there can't be some, because there were a crap load of 126 cameras. I have one by Keystone that is a little SLR. There's a lot of them that I'm sure there's ways around it, but there is not a single universal trick to getting all 126 cameras to work.
If you're absolutely consummate about 126, there's no upper end of these things.
Well, this thing is cool. This is a little SL126 that Fernando was talking about.
That's the one I have too. Right.
The shutter, this thing actually works. The shutter fires at all speeds. Focus is like 4 feet. Did you get one of these too, Mike? This came from Kurt.
Ironically, had one before Kurt. So I had a complete set from before Kurt.
I've got another lens for it, but I'm not sure. I think the other lens is for I have a 80 millimeter Pro Tessar 80 millimeter f4, but I think that goes to the Contaflex 126.
Kodak themselves made in their Stuttgart factory, they made the Instamatic Reflex.
Correct.
Which was just a repurposed, whatever their final 35 millimeter camera was, they just repurposed it.
Now here's a thought. We've all seen this digital thing that's come back, the I'm back, which we all sort of have different opinions on. The way 126 cartridges, just thinking it through, wouldn't they be much easier to develop something to shoot digital that simulates a 126 cartridge, which would be something quite interesting to play around with?
But why?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the question I keep coming back to.
Mike, you had that weird camera, the Ricoh from Kurt, that had the interchangeable modules on the front.
The digital camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have that.
Okay, so that was Theo is saying is put it back, instead of having interchangeable lens modules, have interchangeable back modules. So you could do one for monochrome, you could do one for Santa film, you could do one for any kind of screwy, oddball, mess up your pictures films that you wanted to do.
So what Paul's talking about, it's a digital camera called the Ricoh GXR. And it was, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, the first and only digital camera with a interchangeable lens and sensor module. So you, in theory, well, not in theory, but had this system survived longer, you would be able to swap out higher megapixel sensors, different aspect ratio sensors, different lenses, different mounts. So the back of the camera is really just the screen and the tactile controls, the storage, and some kind of electronics, but all the sensor and lens and all that stuff and shutter is on a module that comes off separately.
And they also did different sensor sizes. So you could get a really tiny little compact sensor with a zoom lens, or you could get a large sensor with an
Correct.
APS-C size with a prime lens. They even made a Leica M mount. So it was just the sensor and an M mount.
The one Mike has is M mount.
So this is the M mount for it. It's about the size, maybe a little bit smaller than a deck of cards. So the M mount version has a mechanical shutter you can see in there. It has the M mount. And then the camera is just, it almost looks like a battery charger kind of, because the module just sort of slides into it. And then in the back, you have the LCD with the viewfinder. And you would have multiple modules, and you would just slide the module in, and you've effectively upgraded the lens and shutter and the sensor of the camera to something else. So I don't think anybody ever tried this again. And Ricoh certainly didn't continue with it. Like, they didn't continue anything in the series. It was maybe more like a proof of concept to see if people would be interested in it, but it was certainly neat.
I would imagine the contacts are probably hard to keep in proper shape and keep free of corrosion, so you always have a working interface between the body
Right.
and the module.
Yeah, though I had one of those. Mine was not M mount though, and I sold it. It was an unusual thing, and I was really surprised that someone bought it. But the person that bought it knew what they wanted to do with it, and I later.
So it was just the module?
No, it was the whole camera.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't M mount. It was something something weird, and I actually shot with it, and the results were horrible. And I made no bones about it. When I sold it, I said, "Look, I've tested this. I don't know if it's working or not, but I can tell you the results are pretty subpar." And the person didn't care, so they had something they were going to do with it. Have you shot with it, Mike? Did you test it?
No, I've turned it on to make sure it works, and it does. I've put a couple different lenses on it, but I've never done any like comprehensive test of it. I'd like to one day, because I don't do a lot of digital camera reviews, but when I do, like I just posted one for the Yashica Digifilm camera, I like to at least include ones that are somewhat different or have like a unique feature that wasn't common. And an interchangeable lens and sensor certainly falls into that category.
Well, we talked before about the Horseman convertible,
Yeah.
which is really the same concept, but in a 120 size camera. The Horseman convertible was a camera a concept type camera that they made it to start with a 56 millimeter lens. It was a slide on lens. And then it took a 6x9, 6x7 back that was just a plain Horseman style back. So you had three pieces. You had a back, you had a body frame, and then you had a lens assembly.
Yeah, the body was literally, like you said, a frame. It was just a piece to connect the two together.
Yeah, it was 3/4 of an inch thick. I mean, the thing was there was nothing to it except it held the other two pieces.
They also had a 612. I guess it was a later, but same concept, I think, right? I've eyed those many times, but never actually.
Yes, they did, and also
one up.
There was a company called Tomiyama that made a 617 and also a 624.
Okay.
But yeah, those Horseman 612s are not easy to find.
No, they're beautiful. They're for a 612 camera, they're so like small and sleek, but yeah, they're pricey.
I have a question about film. I was cleaning out my fridge the other day and I found this bag pushed way back. And when I opened it up, it was full of film. So how long can you keep expired film in the fridge? Not frozen, but in the fridge. And how long can you keep film? Because I have expired film in the freezer. And what's the process of like freezing film and unthawing film to use it? Is there any kind of process to that?
I mean, the first thing is it depends on what film it is. I mean, some film lasts much longer than others, regardless of how it's stored.
It's assorted. I've got 120, 35 millimeter. I've got ortho. I've got, I like Ilford, so I got HP5, FP4. I found a roll of Ektar, Fuji. I'm amazed what I found.
I'll defer to one of these other guys, but the one thing I do know that's more of an issue when you thaw film is to not let moisture, like don't let it thaw too quickly, because you don't want water to form on there, especially if it's roll film, that it can actually get wet. So
keep it in the packaging until it's thawed.
Yeah. Let it thaw like slowly. Don't take frozen film and immediately load it into a hot camera.
Yeah, well, I took the film in the fridge and I put it in the freezer. Everything's still in its original packaging or boxes.
Yeah, it's probably okay. 120 film, that paper backing
Right.
sometimes will migrate onto
Yeah.
the film after it
Correct.
thaws.
Yeah, if it's still packed in its plastic canisters with the lids on, or if it's still like wrapped in its foil, I don't think you have to worry too much about condensation. I take stuff straight out of the freezer, and I've never had an issue if it's coming out of a package.
I was just very happy to find it.
And as far as longevity goes, the slow black and white would probably that would serve. Isn't it the
Right.
faster the film, the shorter its lifespan, and color film. So
Usually,
slow black and
yes.
white probably got some.
Well, there's a big debate on that, guys?
Oh,
Because
really?
yeah, because the age of the film is more sensitive with color films because of the different layers and the different dyes. I've talked to distributors, I've talked to manufacturers. I remember talking to one of my Fuji representatives, and over here in Canada, it's Amplis who distributes Ilford. That representative, and at one point we got into this discussion on photo labs put their films in a bookcase, and others put them in the freezer, others put them in these big Coke refrigerator with the sliding doors. One of the guys had turned to me at one point and said, when we're shipping these truckloads of film across North America and South America and over the pond, most of the time the trucks aren't even refrigerated. Where it's more sensitive is with the color films, black and white films, and the rule of thumb was that for every 10 years on a color film, you'd overexpose it by one stop. I have a film here from 1956.
Panatomic.
Panatone, exactly. No, well, this is plus X, right?
Oh, plus X. Okay.
And Alex Lokes on CCR over here in Ontario told me chances are at film of 1956, chances are it's going to be very low contrast, and you're going to lose a little bit on it. But I've got other people over here who are telling me for black and white film, because there's only one layer on these. As far as freezing the film, refrigerating the film, or keeping it in ambient temperature, what's more important is humidity.
That's definitely important. Two things. I'm going to align with Alex, not because I usually would align with him anyway, but my experience with Plus X has not been favorable on really old stuff. It tends to develop really strong base fog. So
Okay.
unless now I admitted earlier that I limit myself only to HC 110. That's not to say that there aren't other developers that might be better at bleaching out some of the base fog to kind of give you some of that contrast back. But a Plus X roll from the 50s, I would be shocked if you got much out of. And then the second thing, I have to say this. I know it's common sense, but I guarantee you there's people who don't understand this. If you have expired film that hasn't been stored properly, putting it in the freezer will not make it better. You're just
Exactly.
slowing down. So if the film is already aged, putting it in the freezer later just slows down further aging. It will not restore it.
Well,
Exactly.
and that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah.
If a film has an expiration date of December, that means the film was made in, let's say, January. The manufacturer assumed it was going to be shot in July or
Correct.
June or July. So the film has an age process from the date it was made to the date that they say that it's expired. And expiration means best buy. It doesn't mean it's going
Yeah.
to fall apart on that day. It's just going to be not as good as it was 6 months previously. That's why Kodak and other professional films were refrigerated. The refrigeration process arrested the
Aging.
aging. Yeah, it didn't keep it from going bad. It just kept it at an aim point.
Right. It's the
where
same
the aim
reason that
point was.
placing a car battery in a cool area will allow it to stay charged longer than if it's in a hot garage.
Yeah.
Similar concept that you're slowing down the chemical reaction. I think we had, now that we're going back a lot of episodes, but I think I remember Robert Schaenberg talking about that with Kodak like Gold, where they color balanced it, intending it to be shot after it's several months old. And he had said that if you were to somehow get Kodak Gold fresh off the line and you shot it immediately, it would have weird colors then too, because
Yeah,
it's not old enough.
Absolutely. The Kodak had a test target they call Shirley. And there were a number of Shirleys over the years. And I had a poster once that had like 20 Shirleys on it. Then that's who they shot. They based when they did their film test, they would use Shirley, and In January, Shirley did not have a good complexion. In June and July, she looked pretty good. And then in December, she was looking a little nasty.
I will add that about 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I picked up a 400-foot roll of 1965 Eastman 5220, which was the
Double X?
no, it's the XT.
XT.
Remember, I sent you a roll.
You
Or
did.
two or
Okay.
three. So it was the cinematic version of Panatomic X. So it was meant to be where Double X was, a 200 ISO film that was designed to be shot under artificial lights. This was daylight balanced black and white film, extremely fine grained. They only made it for about 7 years in the early 60s. Ended up using it mostly as a rear projection film. So like those old movies where people would be in a car and they'd be driving and there'd be the background would be the projection of the car looking out the back because they shot it on a sound stage and not actually driving. The background is what they would use the XT for. So I ended up with this roll of film. It's rare. I've never seen it come up for sale again. Somehow I ended up with 400 feet of it. It went into my fridge. I've got it in a 200-foot bulk loader in my fridge. It looks like it was manufactured last year. I mean, you can shoot that film at 25 ISO, and I'd put it up against any film manufactured in 2025. And, that film was manufactured, I mean, just because they discontinued making it in 1967, began making it in like 1962. So it's somewhere between 62 and, 57 years old. And, that's my treasure. It's that film is I break it out for the rare occasion when I really want an exceptional fine grained film, and it's never let me down. I've developed it in Rodinal. I developed it in D96, which is what it was actually. If you look at the original spec sheet for it that came out, it was designed to be developed in D96, but it also looks great in HC 110. It's a very versatile film, but I can guarantee you that film was not stored properly. That film has never seen a freezer. It came out of an auction from the UK that somehow I blundered onto. I also got 400 feet of Double X from about the same time. The Double X is grainy as hell. It's like I use that for just camera testing because
Wasn't that the one you found in the garbage?
No, that was Tech Pan.
Oh, okay.
I found the Tech Pan in the garbage, but
Anthony, that's motion picture film, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So motion picture film was probably the most forgiving film out there, simply because they couldn't tell how it was going to be stored. If they were going to send a film, they could be using it in the subarctic, they could be using it in the desert. So
Sure.
it had a lot of latitude as far as storage and humidity, dryness. I mean, it just had all kinds of things going for it.
If anybody out there sees Eastman Kodak 5220 XT for sale, jump on it. Don't worry about the fact it's a 60-year-old film. It will not disappoint you.
The other thing that you look for on those films, AJ, if you can, when they discontinue them,
Yeah.
they sometimes put an SO number on them. So they would replace that 5220 with an SO number. The SO was special order, but they would still do it. So you could, if you search for it, search for Kodak SO films, because there might be another alternative number
Ooh, I don't know about that.
that you can get with
Everything I've read about it said it was discontinued in 67.
Well, it probably was, but that doesn't mean they didn't make more of it.
That's true. That's true.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, there were a lot of slide dupe films and infrared films that were SO numbers.
And I'd also say that anything 52 is 35 millimeter. If you see a code starting with 72, that's 16 millimeter film.
52 is 35 millimeter.
Yes.
Yep.
And 62,
72 is 16 millimeter. So unless you want 16 millimeter, make sure you get the 52 version.
Okay.
I'm always on the lookout for Kodak Vision 350D, which is their 50 daylight balance color film. And it's really easy to find in 16 millimeter, but it's super hard to find in 35 millimeter.
So like you could look at the Vision 3 500T, which is the tungsten film. 5219 is the 35 millimeter code for it. And
Right.
7219 is the 16 millimeter code for it. So first 2 digits are the film size, next 2 digits are the film type.
I have a suggestion about slide film. I developed slide film in this area of Germany, and I have such a bad experience with old slide. Please don't use slide film in old because it's worthless.
I mean, slide film is very particular for exposure even when fresh. So I would suspect that expired slide film is a non-starter, I think, for most people.
It just ages really badly. I've had some awful experiences with expired slide film.
My favorite film for years and years back in the 60s and 70s was AGFA Chrome CT18, which was just a absolutely beautiful, warmish, warmer than neutral, but just wonderful, wonderful film. But it aged so poorly that, I mean, after processing, the film would begin to deteriorate within a year. And I don't think I have any of it left now that I can actually even look at it. It's just the images have just gone all to magenta and they just look terrible.
Would it help to preserve it like in darkness, or did it not matter?
They were all stored in archival pages and, in a binder in a dark area. And the dyes just leached out of it. I mean, that's just all that happened. It just faded away. E6 has done the same thing. I mean, E4 and E6, but not to the same extent that the AGFA Chrome CT18 did.
And as far as aging the slide film, what would be the cutoff? 10 years, 20 years?
I feel like 10 years, you're already probably gonna have
and I have
issues.
4 sheets of 4x5.
I mean, if you're keeping it frozen, I think your chances are much better. But if it's just been laying out, I don't know. Shoot one and see what happens.
I still got some Velvia. I mean, I'm not gonna throw it away, but I'm not gonna shoot anything that I really care about with it either. But the Fuji slide films seem to have a fairly good lifespan compared to Kodak, and definitely compared to AGFA. Some of the older slide films from the 60s and earlier, the Anscos and GAF and those films, Ferragna in Italy, they made a couple of slide films. They were all E4, E3, E4, and E6 process, and they were pretty marginal.
I remember that the fast Ansco was marginal. I mean, it was grainy, and it was. I remember that it was for a while. It was the fastest E6 or slide film you could get.
ASA 500. That was the Henry Fonda film.
Right. And I just remember it was awful. I mean, it was grainy. It was low saturation.
It was nasty.
No dynamic range.
Terrible grain and color shift. But it was an ASA 500 color slide film.
Remember, you were better to get high-speed Ektachrome, and Eastman would actually push it to 320 for you. Remember that stuff?
At that time, the highest they made with high-speed Ektachrome was ASA 200.
Right. But I remember you could actually pay them an extra $1 and they'd push it like a stop and a third or something like that to get up to 320.
Yeah. And it wasn't bad. I mean, it was.
No, I liked the Ektachrome. I didn't like the Ansco.
No, the GAF that wasn't a good film at all.
Right.
So since this is ostensibly the AGFA show, I will say that in 1999, in 99, I was in Greece working on a documentary about the HMS Britannic. And I somehow ended up taking nothing but AGFA HDC 100, which, Paul, was that a film that was like a Konica film that was rebadged?
What was it?
HDC 100.
Yes. Yeah, HDC was AGFA.
I rescanned that film recently, and it is one of my favorite color films I've ever shot. You are sitting on, I should try to buy that from you, Mike, because that is one of my favorite films of all time for color film. But the other AGFA film that I'm absolutely in love with is AGFA Pan Professional 25. I had a block of that I actually at one time picked up off a friend of the show, Cheyenne Morrison, down in Australia. And that AGFA Pan Professional 25 must have been from the late 80s, is up there with Panatomic X and my beloved 5220 for my favorite slow speed black and white film that I've ever shot.
I agree 100%. I've shot actually APX 25 alongside with Pan X 25, and I cannot tell a difference. in tonality, grain structure, midtones, because that's really why I like Pan-X so much. It's not only that it lasts forever. I mean, certainly that's a huge selling point for me, but I really do like shadow detail. I don't like high contrast films. So like the Rollei RPX 25 is a little too on the contrasty side. I don't like films that are borderline IR, that'll actually have like muddy blacks and blown out highlights in the same image. I get that some people like that look. It's just not for me. I love images that show tons and tons of midtones, and both Pan-X and the APX 25 do that really well. It just gives it a very classic and beautiful look to me.
Well, the Pan Professional 25 predates the APX.
True, you're right. They're the same family lineage, though. Yes.
Yeah.
If you find the older stuff, that's what you're talking about. But from my experience, the APX 25 lives up very, very close.
Yeah.
The 100 is also a really nice film, the original APX 100. Not the new one that they've produced. I mean, the new one's nice too. Sorry, I shouldn't be really critical that way. But the original one is really, really nice. Just talking about slide film earlier, there's a slide film called AGFA, and keeping to the AGFA theme, Precisa CT100. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, Precisa CT100, which I never really sort of took to when it was fresh, but I've got some old stock. And one thing with that one is you cross-process that, and it has absolutely wonderful results. It's a film that, yes, it's expired now if you get your hands on it, but cross-process it, and you really get some good results on that. Another one I've got in my fridge, which is interesting, is an AGFA Chrome 1000 RS 1000. So the 1000 RS, which expired in 1986. I've got 2 rolls of that in 120. So who's willing to put bets on how that's going to end up when I shoot that?
That's going to be exceptionally nasty. Fernando was holding up a roll of 3M 640T, and I'm pretty sure that's a Ferragna film. Does it have a country of manufacture?
Yes, Italy.
Italy, that's Ferragna. Yeah.
85. 85.
Yeah, that's a tungsten balanced 640 film. Of course, with a 640 with a tungsten balanced film, you have to use an 85A to absorb the blue that you'd get if you shot with it outside.
It is worthless. I tested and it's totally transparent.
Pretty bad.
During this segment, the audio is very poor. Fernando asks us a question about AGFA's 1930s AGFA color film and what process it uses. Since the audio is so poor, I'm asking his question for him.
I can't remember what the process was called. It was
it was not C41.
No, it was well before C22. It was Dynacolor or something. They had it. It actually probably didn't have a letter or number designation. It was probably a name. Autocolor, Dynacolor, something like that that they considered to be the process, because they weren't standardized processing between the early manufacturers of color negative film. But I can't remember what it was.
So I'm seeing that, I'm just looking it up and I see that, I don't think there was a number, but I see they just had their own thing they were doing. And then after the war, there was a Soviet version called, the process was called Sov color. And then they also were making it in Poland for a process called Pol color. Is this ringing a bell?
Yeah. There was no coordination between the film manufacturers to have a standardized process until sometime, probably, I don't know the exact dates, but I would think it would be probably somewhere in the 50s, early 50s maybe, that they got together and decided it was easier. It was better for them to cooperate than it was for them to try to run their own railroads.
Was that C22 back then, or was that later, C22?
C22 would have been in the 60s.
Okay.
So, but it could have been, Pat, it could have been in the 50s also. That is actually the earliest that I can remember, but there may have been one that I'm not remembering.
The other 2 AGFA films that, long expired but are still worth trying to chase down, the color film Ultra 50. I'm still getting great results from that. I had that in a roll of medium format film. Loved shooting it. But the other one that just shocked the hell out of me is I ended up with an unreasonable amount of AGFA Scala.
Mm-hmm.
And You can
That's
either
ADOX.
use
That's ADOX, isn't it?
no, it was AGFA. The film was AGFA.
Okay.
The film is probably 30 years old, but I developed it using actually it was the FOMA reversal kit and got spectacular results from that. And then also ADOX makes a couple of special developers. One is for Silver Max and the other is for other slow speed films. And if you want to develop it as negative film, you use the ADOX developers for slow speed films. If you want to develop it as a reversal film, as like a slide film, the FOMA or the ADOX kits work just fine, and it delivers stunning results.
But I believe that, like Mike said, though, ADOX took over the AGFA.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Recipes. So you have the ADOX Scala, which is now the old AGFA Scala.
I gotcha.
Right. The film that I have is vintage AGFA Scala film.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, also talking about that HDC film and all the other AGFA films, you're actually going to get a better result shooting them today than you would have had shooting them back in the day when they were fresh films, because the labs didn't print them well. The labs didn't have channels set up for them, and unless you had a lab that was specifically dialed in on the AGFA or Konica films, the results weren't very good. But today you can shoot that old expired film and you're scanning it yourself.
Okay.
And printing it yourself with Negative Lab Pro or some of the other apps that you can use. And you can get really good results from them, much better than I think you could when the film was fresh.
If you go to Alex Lakes' site, and search for Scala, he's got some sample images. And I like that all of his sample images, if you click through them, it takes them to his Flickr page and he posts the original resolution images there. When you zoom in, these are 35 millimeter images that have the clarity of medium format. It is unbelievable that a negative that size was able to, and there's almost no grain. These look like slightly less digital images. They don't have a digital look to it per se, but it's like like you said, Paul, you're extracting more out of what's there than you probably could when it was new. And it's just so impressive to me. But you need to have the right film and you need to have that special developer. From my understanding, it's a little bit more involved than like HC 110, like what I'm using, D76, the simpler developers.
If you go onto my Flickr account, I've got hundreds and hundreds of exposures of AGFA Scala developed with at least 4, not 5 different developers.
And you see the difference?
You can just search my Flickr feed for Scala and see it as reversal, see it in the different developers.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, it is. Good film.
That's a proponent against my desire to be lazy and just keep shooting the same developer. I really should try some of these other ones one day.
The reversal kits, they're a commitment. It's like it's like 6 different chemicals that you have to do.
Yeah,
and from the moment you start, you can't speed it up. So from the moment you start developing till you're done, it's not like shooting with HC 110 where your development time 6 minutes and your fix is 1 minute, or your stop is a minute and your fix is 3 minutes. It's not like that. It's an hour and 15 minutes from start to finish to do the process for the reversal. And at one point you have to take the film, pull it out of the canister and hold it up to the light and flash it to the light and then put it back in the canister and then redevelop it and then restop it and then refix it. So it's a commitment. Trust the process.
Yeah.
And it'll work, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's no more difficult than just pouring chemicals in and out of a container. There's nothing horribly difficult, but you just have to be, your mind can drift doing, one development for an hour. So you just have to not make mistakes and make sure you've got everything timed and everything laid out. And it works.
Well, that was, Anthony, that was like the old Kodak E3 slide process. It was a light re-exposure. So you had to take it out of the developing tank, unspool it like you said, and hold it up to a 250-watt tungsten light bulb for like 30 seconds.
Yep.
And if you were able to do that without splashing water on a hot 250-watt bulb, which immediately explodes.
Well, Kodachrome was like that too. But you not only had to re-expose it to light, you had to re-expose it to certain color temperatures of light. Like there was a step.
It was very, very particular.
Right. Like you had to flash red light on it at one point and then blue light on it and then put it back in. It's like
Those are the dye couplers that were in it.
Yeah.
And then when Kodak came out with the E4 process, it changed everyone's lives because it was a chemical re-exposure.
Yeah.
Chemical reversal, I should say. And so it made it a lot easier. You no longer had to do that light re-exposure. Then that was like 11 steps. And then when they came out with E6, it went down to like 8 steps. And then they did somebody came up with E6 Rapid, which was 4 steps. So, I mean, E6 processing at home became something that anyone could do when they got it down to that level.
So can we talk about AGFA cameras?
What?
Well, I was just going to say about AGFA developing. Like, I don't even think that Mike's HC110 developing is lazy, because I think I had an even lazier development method, which was AGFA Rodinal stand development. I would just dilute that 1 to 100 and do stand development for 1 hour. So a little bit of agitation at the beginning, like tap it to get the bubbles out, but just let it sit in there for an hour. And
in the fridge or not?
No, just out on a shelf.
Out on the counter?
It was, a cool basement. It's a compensating development. So it basically stops working on the highlights, but continues to work on the shadows. And then the developer also kind of exhausts itself. So timing doesn't really matter. If you're a few minutes off, it doesn't really matter. And even the stop bath doesn't really matter that much because the developer is kind of exhausted. So you take this one-shot developer that you're not going to reuse, dilute it like crazy, do a development process where it sits for an hour and it doesn't matter a few minutes here or there, and doesn't really matter if you stop it correctly. And it's so easy, and you really end up with a nice compensating effect. So it would probably make a lot more films fit what your kind of look that you'd like, Mike. I think especially after scanning. And that's what I'd call lazy.
It works great for old expired films that you have no idea what the proper development would be at this time. You've got old films like old East German films that aren't in the massive dev chart, and you just have no idea. And Rodinal stand developing is the magic bullet to get results out of those films.
So when you're doing stand developing, it does matter that you cannot agitate it while it's going, right? Like that'll disrupt.
You want to leave it alone.
Yeah.
Maybe one lazy turn at the halfway point is about all I would do.
I do one inversion at the halfway point, just a tiny bit.
Agitation can actually increase contrast. It sort of counteracts the effect that you're doing. The compensating effect is counteracted.
That's what my understanding was. Like the developer is resting on the film surface, but when you agitate it, it moves around. And so then it's no longer necessarily like exhausted. It can start going to work on it again.
Yeah, and you could probably get some bromide drag and other things going on too there.
Yeah.
I used to use Rodinal to get negatives out of lith film. So we make inner negatives out of lith film, and Rodinal did a great job of giving a full tonal range for that. I think it was 1 to 50, 1 to 100, I think. It was that's my favorite developer. Rodinal's just great.
I've done stand development with HC110 before too, and I've had the same results where it's wonderful for super expired film. It has a tendency to reduce space fog a little bit. I've actually seen, it's been a long time, I don't remember what site I was on, but I saw where someone did, using the exact same film stock, exact same exposure settings, same exact photos, they did one of the rolls with normal development, and then the other roll in with stand development. And even after just taking the film out of the tanks, just looking with the naked eye at the film, there was better contrast on the stand development. But you do tend to need to overexpose them a little bit more to equal out, the correct exposure.
And isn't HC110 famous for having lower fog than a lot of things? So that's good for that kind of thing.
It has that chemical, I forget, you can add sometimes to help reduce fog.
They used to call it Kodak anti-fog way back in the day.
There's a name for it.
Yeah. Flint, whatever.
I just picked up a developer. I haven't actually gotten to run any film through it yet, but I used to live in the city where I didn't have to worry about this. I'm now living in a house where I have a septic system, so I'm a little more careful about disposal of things that they say are safe to go through treatment, but not necessarily septic safe. And Flick Film has I think it's supposed to be a HC110-esque called black, white, and green that's designed to be like completely safe to just like pour into the ground.
Usually it's Xtol. Xtol is the vitamin C based developer.
Okay, is Xtol's the one? I think my brother shoots or develops with Xtol and really likes it. But is that the one that when it goes, like when it expires, it just stops working all at once, as opposed to like a gradual deterioration?
Yeah, it pretty much is exhausted and just stops.
Yeah.
Anthony has a formula for Xtol if you want to.
No, it's mine's for a POTA.
Okay. Yeah.
That's from Robert Shanebrook.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the other advantage of Rodinal is that it just never expires. I had a friend that gave me a bottle that was from like the 1980s. So we're looking at a 35-year-old bottle of Rodinal that had never been opened, and it worked perfectly fine.
The HC110 seems to last a very long time as well. I've never had a bottle go bad on me.
I can confirm it can go bad, but it takes a very long time.
Mike has been using HC110 that, if you look at it, looks like Hershey's syrup in the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah, it looks like
before they reformulated it to the less thick.
Yeah, you've still got the syrup kind.
Well, I talked about it on a couple episodes ago. I got a bottle of the new ADOX HC110 syrup. I haven't tried it yet because I haven't done any black and white since then. I've been trying to focus more on color film throughout the summer, but I'm really excited to do that. But I've had the original Kodak syrup. Then I had the new Kodak that was super watery. That was the bottle
crystals.
Yep, it forms crystals in the bottom, and if you forget to leave the cap on overnight, it ruins it, so don't do that. I've tried Legacy Pro 110, which is also very watery, but to me, it worked just as well. I noticed no difference in the quality of the images, and I just finished that bottle without ruining it. And like I said, I just got the ADOX bottle about a month and a half ago, but I haven't tried it yet. And the last thing I was going to say is earlier, the chemical I was thinking of to help reduce fog is called benzotriazole. So that's something you can buy, and I don't know the correct mixture, but you put a tiny bit of this benzo stuff in certain developers, and it can help further reduce fog on older films.
Yeah, I'll share my results when I finally get to try the black, white, and green, because from what I understand, it's supposed to be pretty close to indistinguishable from the syrup HC110, the old thick one.
Where's that made? Is it a U.S.?
It's Flick Film. I'm not sure where they are based.
Canada.
Oh, Alberta.
It's Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alberta, Canada.
It's not easy to find.
In the HC110 world, I've used both the thick and the thin. In use, isn't the thin stuff similar, or is that a debate? Is that a fist fight?
I haven't seen a difference personally.
No, I couldn't tell.
I've never noticed the difference.
No, same time, same temps, same
agitation. It affect for 99% of the people, from what I've been told, the thin stuff is just as good. Where it differs though is when you're stretching it. The syrup lasts longer, but if you don't ever stretch it and you do a single roll and you immediately just dump it out and just keep mixing fresh every time, you'll never notice a difference. But you can stretch the syrup more than you can the thin stuff. And that's a tip I've given out many times, is that if everybody says it's just one shot and then pour it out. If you're doing HC110 and you have multiple tanks, as long as you do it one right after another, you can reuse it. I wouldn't keep it overnight, but if you're doing multiple tanks at the same time, because if you think about it, if you're doing 2 Patterson tanks, let's say with 2 rolls each, versus 1 Patterson tank with 4 rolls, like a bigger tank, it's still the same mixture.
Absolutely.
It's the quantity of surface area that it's developing. So, and I'm sure there is an upper limit. I've just never reached it. I typically don't like to do more than 3 tanks at a time. I lose my mojo after that. So I've been successful at doing 3 tanks of 3 Patterson tanks of the exact same mixture of HC110 back to back to back, and I've noticed no ill effects from it whatsoever.
So, Mike, can we talk about some AGFA cameras?
Sure, why not? It is the AGFA episode, after all.
Ooh, Theo's got a clack.
I own exactly one AGFA camera.
Which one is it?
And that's an AGFA Pioneer, which is basically a Bakelite box camera with a spring shutter, 6x9 with like a curved, film plane. But there are AGFA cameras that I've just had the worst luck of not getting working versions of them. Like I had is it the Ambi Soletta?
The Select, yep.
The Ambi Select. I had one that just I got it from a German auction site, and I thought it was going to be great. It showed up, and it was DOA. So I do not have one, but it seemed like a super solid camera.
They're very nice.
I also have always wanted a working. Is it the Karat one, the half frame camera?
Yeah.
And then there's the Optima that is the design influence on the Plavel Makina. Those are the AGFAs that I've always.
Say that third one again.
It's the Optima that is the design inspiration for the modern Plavel Makina.
Really?
6.7?
Yes, it's like you put them side by side.
The camera itself is not 6.7, but it's the design ethos is very similar.
But if you put them side by side, you can just see the design influence. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Camera.
That one I've never seen. I'm gonna have to find one now.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Fernando, which one is that? A Sensormatic? Sensor?
This is an Optima sensor.
Optima sensor, right. Okay, now see that's a viewfinder camera, but no rangefinder.
Correct.
And then one we talked about earlier today was the 1535, which is a coupled rangefinder and a 40 millimeter 2.8 lens. But those have really a good reputation of being excellent cameras.
Yeah, but they've gotten a little pricey.
Yeah, they have. They've that's the influencers. Which one is that, Mike? That one's got the.
This is the Optima sensor with the flash. So it's the same camera he was just holding up, but it's got a pop-up flash. So it's got.
Yeah, that's not the one. That
it is the same one. Okay.
The 6.7.
This is the one I was telling you about earlier, Paul. It works fine, but the lens is fogged up more on this thing than I've seen in any other camera in my life. I mean, it actually looks like maybe water or sometime got in there and dried up or something, because it is like opaque, like a shower door. But otherwise, the camera is great. It's got a huge viewfinder. I mean, it's equal to the large Foltlander viewfinder on the later Vitomatics and the Prominent 2. That big, huge piece of glass. I mean, it's really big.
Fernando, what is yours? Does the lens look fairly clear on the one you have there?
He's got one with the flash, one without it.
How does the lens look on your camera, on the flash camera, Fernando? Is it fairly clear, or is it does it look at all hazy to you?
Oh, it's perfectly clear. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not anything that's inherent in the camera, no lubricants or anything that outgassed. It's just Mike's got one that.
I just got a bad example.
Abused.
It was probably dropped in water.
Yeah, it's my guess. Yeah, point. I think it's because the rest of the camera's in good shape. It's just the lens is completely opaque. And I'm sorry, Zach, we haven't had a chance to talk to you too much. Did you want to get in and comment at all?
I don't really know anything about AGFA. I'm still very early in my film photography journey. I inherited my first camera a couple months ago and have just been enjoying listening and learning.
Cool.
We will invite you back in a couple months and we'll quiz you, okay?
Oh, boy.
Fernando was holding up a stereo camera. What a stereo, was it a lens, stereo lens on the camera you had?
No. It's two cameras, one on top of one.
No. I think it's the TLR. It was actually a TLR.
TLR? Yes.
Okay.
I've seen that one before.
It's called the Flexilet.
Flexilet. Okay.
The Flexilet has a waist level finder. I have the Optima Reflex, which has a pentaprism. But it's basically the same camera. It's a true TLR. It is a 35 millimeter TLR. It handles like an SLR, but because it's a TLR, when you fire the shutter, there's no viewfinder blackout because the viewfinder is not the taking lens.
Oh.
Otherwise, I don't think there's any difference between the Optima Reflex and the Flexilet.
For our listeners, the gas level in this call at the moment has gone up considerably, looking at all the faces across the cameras.
This podcast is not good for gas at all.
By the way, the Optima I was talking about was the Optima 1535.
Yeah, that's the one we were talking about earlier privately. That
the loading is very, very particular. You just push it through here, and it goes like automatically winds in the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And when you move to reverse, the same.
It's the advance also becomes a rewind.
The rewind, right?
That's the camera. For 2 years, I've been trying to remember which camera that was.
No, there's a lot of them are like that, Paul. It's not just.
Were there really? I mean, there was another one.
Just the 1535, because this is a Selectronic S. It's the same way, and I think the AGFA Optima sensor also does not have a rewind. So I think all this era AGFA cameras, all the black ones with the large red button, I shouldn't say all because I'm sure I'm wrong, but a large number of this era AGFA cameras that had the black body with the red button are like how you're describing, where the film advance, when you engage rewind mode, you still use the film advance to rewind it. It just goes in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and you can always tell because there is no film rewind knob.
Right. It physically doesn't have that's how you look. It doesn't have a button. Like you would think maybe this has a motor drive, but it doesn't. And they're all like that. Like the Selectronic S is on the bottom though, instead of the top.
There was another camera that was very similar to that. That's from the 50s or possibly early 60s, made in Germany, that had that same way of doing it. It had a lever that you put into place, and your film advance then turned into a rewind. So it's the same concept. It was just a different. I've been trying to remember the name of that camera for several years. I can't remember what it was. I had one, and it took me forever to learn to try to figure out how to rewind the film from it.
I have one, but I don't remember the name too.
Thank you. Thanks, Fernando.
The name of a woman. I think it's the name of a woman. Something like.
If you think of what it was, tell me. Hey, Mike, what was the other 35 millimeter TLR?
You mean the Bolsey for 35 millimeter twin lens reflex?
Oh yeah, the Bolsey.
And then this is the Samoka Flex 35, which is very similar to the Bolsey. So these are all 35 millimeter TLRs where they look like a normal 35 millimeter camera, just the second lens.
Although the Bolsey also has a rangefinder, so anything you could possibly want.
Yeah.
Except a working shutter in most of them.
Shutter.
Oh, well.
One last thing, Fernando's Flex-a-lat, I assume it's the same way, but the Optima Reflex TLR, the viewfinder is incredibly bright on it. It's got a split image rangefinder, focusing aid, but at a diagonal. And I mean, I'm looking through it here and it's crystal clear. It's really bright, and you use a big focus ring right around both lenses. So this camera otherwise operates exactly like a normal 35 millimeter camera will, but it is a TLR design. And then similar to that era, one of my favorite SLRs that AGFA ever made was called the Selectaflex. This camera is so much fun. It is a behemoth though. It is very tall for its size. It's got this huge selenium meter on it, which amazingly on this example still works. It's got an interchangeable lens mount, which is unique to this camera. I'm lucky enough to have both the 50 millimeter and the 35 millimeter f3.4 called the AGFA Color Ambion. This one has film advance on the back. It's got a very bright viewfinder. I've shot images with this. It's got a really easy to use viewfinder. Some versions of this camera have auto exposure. The auto exposure system depends on the meter to work, but if the meter is not working, you can still shoot it manually. So you can set the shutter speed to 1 through 300, and then you can change the aperture from, in the case of this lens, 3.4 all the way up to 22. So in terms of like a distinct look, I do really like the AGFA SLRs. The biggest problem with them is that they're all leaf shutters. And as we've discussed many, many times, leaf shutter SLRs are extremely complicated. And if they stop working, very few people will touch them.
You know, you talk about the leaf shutter cameras. At one of the photo stores just here in Winnipeg, there were 2 Zeiss Contaflexes for sale. They had 2. And with the add-on lenses, both the wide angles and the telephoto lenses that you screwed into the fixed lens. And I was thinking about it, and I asked the fellow here in Winnipeg that we're very fortunate that we have 2 independent camera stores plus 1 chain store plus a repair shop that does basically all the repairs for Northern Ontario and the prairies. He's the only guy. He's extremely busy. And when I asked him about the Zeiss cameras, the Contaflexes, about getting them up and running, he says, "Do you want to sign over your pension to me?" That's how he put it. So I passed on them.
I've got a beloved Contaflex that just looks like it came out of the box last week. And I've had 2 different repair people whom I've total trust in have given it a shot to keep that thing working. And I've never been able to get a reliable shutter out of it. It'll work, and then one day it'll just stop working. I can't tell you how much money I've sunk into trying to keep that camera alive and shooting, because I really love shooting with it. It's got a particular formulation of the Tessar. It's like my favorite, like post-war version of the Tessar. When it works, I get beautiful results out of it. But I cannot keep that, and I'm tired of sending it off to get it fixed. So it's now just the display piece. And now The camera will fire like about once every 20 frames. So I'll put a roll of film in it and get 2 shots.
In Germany, you can find them in the bin of
At the front door.
Junk bin camera.
for 20 euros.
They were selling for $99 each
No,
with
no,
the
nope,
standard
nope,
lens and the wide angle. No, I passed on them. I passed
No,
on them.
they're $20 cameras. They're shelf pieces. But you know, the
Yeah,
other
exactly.
thing, Anthony, with the Contaflexes, the lenses, they had the same problem the Voigtlanders did. It's really rare to see them that don't have horrible element separation.
If you want to shoot a leaf shutter SLR, you're just going to have better luck with some of the other ones. Kawas surprisingly seem to hold up better. I've had pretty good luck with the Kawa SE, SER, SET. It's not to say they're all working, but I've had better luck with them. And surprisingly, the Kodak, not Instamatic, the Kodak Retina reflexes, more times than not, will at least fire. Maybe not at all speeds, but I've found that more times than not, you can get a roll or two out of the Kodak Retina reflexes better than the Contaflexes.
Here in Winnipeg, there's a thrift store, and I've been very fortunate because they had, I guess it must have been a collector who passed away, and they're opening up boxes and putting out cameras from time to time, and a lot of times it's junk, but I picked up an Ashai Pantex SV with the meter there, and like they sell them cheap, and I picked up a Kodak Retina Reflex 3 for $35 with a beautiful Schneider lens on it. The 105 or 135 f4. I haven't shot it yet. It's a leaf shutter, but it's a beautiful, it's just
very pretty,
gorgeous to look at.
That was Anthony's dad's camera he had repaired by Chris Sherlock, right? Right before he stopped.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
If it doesn't work, I don't care because I paid $35 for it, so I'm not worried about the Kodak. But the Zeisses were $99, and I wasn't going to spend $100 for a shelf queen.
That's aspirational, Mike. That's those cameras.
Yeah. Well, I passed on them.
Mike, was the Kodak Instamatic Reflex was a Nagel camera, wasn't it?
No.
Yes, that Kodak's Stuttgart Werke.
It was in Stuttgart, but Nagel was dead by then. He would have had no influence on it.
Any Kodak camera made in Germany to me is a Nagel.
Correct. Yeah, they are all German-made cameras in Stuttgart. Let's try to breeze through a couple more AGFA cameras here. I do want to quickly revisit the AGFA Ambi-Silat because this was their, I'm not going to say it competed with Leica or Contax or anything quite like that, but I mean, this was like their mid-level interchangeable lens rangefinder. It has a very bright, very good viewfinder that you can change the projected frame lines on. It's got a little sliding switch for 35, 50, and 90. They did make, I believe, a 135 lens that required the use of an auxiliary viewfinder on it too. But Anthony's right. They can be sometimes hard to find with working shutters, but they're a typical leaf shutter camera. So while I won't say a lot of people will fix them, if you do find someone who's willing to touch a leaf shutter camera, they can probably get them working for you. And I'd say these are one of the better of the I'll call it a B list 35 millimeter interchangeable lens rangefinders are quite good. Wes Loader, Nikon guy, is a huge fan of these. He's got a really excellent resource on his website about the Ambi-Silets and all the different variations of them, plus all those different lenses. Briefly, we were talking about the Optima Parat, which is like the Parat one, but it has that really cool, like almost an aluminum foil body covering to it. The Parat one is a little bit easier to find, and I recommend that. It's a half frame camera, by the way. One thing that's really good about the Parat one, which the other Parat, I can't remember what it's called, can't do, is the Parat one lets you shoot manual exposure. It does not rely on the meter like some of the other ones do. So if you're looking to shoot any of the half frame AGFA cameras, you want the Parat 1 or the Optima Parat. I believe those are the only two that will allow you to control both aperture and shutter speeds without having to rely on a meter. But they are, I mean, they're attractive little cameras, and I'd say optically they're just as good as anything Olympus was making for half frame around that same time. To me, the quintessential AGFA camera we haven't even really mentioned is the Karat. The Karat was AGFA's answer to the Kodak Retina. German camera, 35 millimeter rangefinder, similar build quality, similar selection of excellent lenses. You usually can find these with Schneider lenses. A lot of different, optical, wasn't interchangeable lenses, but they sold it with a bunch of different varieties. It is a scissors camera, so it's not folding quite like the Kodak is that closes the door. It just allows you to, pop it open if you need to, or when you need to shoot it. Going through the Karat lineage, the pre-war ones and early post-wars used the Karat cartridges. These are really easy to differentiate between the 35 millimeter ones because Karat film was cassette to cassette, so they do not have a rewind knob. Maybe that's why we were talking earlier on those later AGFA cameras, they got rid of the rewind knob. Maybe that was like an FU to Kodak by making them put rewind knobs on cameras. Who knows? But the original AGFA Karat cameras both did not have a rewind knob, and the exposure counter only goes up to 12 because that's the maximum number of exposures you can get on a Karat cassette before the film starts to bind. Whereas when they finally relented and modified the camera to use regular 35 millimeter film, they had to add a rewind knob and extend the exposure counter to go all the way up to 36 exposures.
So they were, Mike, were they all 24 by 36?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there were none that were 24.
I'm 99% sure there was not. I don't believe there ever was, because I have some of the really early Karats, and those are rectangular as well. Now, maybe are they 23 by 35? Possibly.
No,
but they're definitely not square. Right. To me, though, and the reason I spent so much time going over the Karats, the best feature about these cameras, the rangefinders I'm talking, and I'm excluding the Karat 4 because they got rid of this feature, but all of the Karat 12, 36, there was actually an Ansco branded version of this camera too called the Karat Matte, but it's the same camera. The best feature, I have horrible vision. I'm blind in my right eye, and in the eye that I can't see, I have like a negative 9.75 prescription. So for those of you who understand glasses, that means Coke bottle lenses. I have terrible vision. And one thing that I like about rangefinders versus TTL viewfinders like an SLRs is that unless the viewfinder is very crisp and clear, sometimes I struggle to see focus on an SLR, whereas I like rangefinders because you line up the image. But of course, we all know that rangefinders can be dim too. Plus, over time, beam splitters and mirrors and sometimes can dull, lowering the contrast. But on these earlier Karat rangefinders, it has what I think is the only split image full viewfinder. And what I mean by that is think of an Argus C3. It has the rangefinder window is a split image, meaning the top half and the bottom half are two different pieces of the rangefinder, and you have to focus the camera until the two lines match up. But in the Argus, it's a separate window. You then move your eye to the main window. In the AGFA Karats, the entire viewfinder is the rangefinder. So you look through it, the entire image is the rangefinder. So basically, when you no longer see the split image, that's when you press the shutter release and your image is perfectly in focus. It works incredibly well. Plus, extra added bonus for those of you who are fans of cameras like the Kodak Medalist, which do not use mirrors at all. They use glass prisms. That's how this one is too. So there's no mirror that actually controls the two images. It's a glass prism that is, as long as the camera hasn't been dropped or severely damaged or submerged in water or something, it's very unlikely that these two glass prisms will ever be out of alignment. These cameras almost never need a rangefinder adjustment because the prisms are basically locked into position. They're bright. They almost never desilver. And because the entire image that you're looking through is the split image, for people like me with horrible vision, they're incredibly easy to use. The downside, there's always a con. Sometimes people hear you talk about the AGFA green goo, which is a disaffectionate name for the lubricant that GAF, General Aniline and Film, who owned AGFA, was using at the time. Unfortunately, the lubricant that was used on these cameras tends to harden into an almost wax cement-like substance, rendering the focusing helix on these like almost immovable. So unfortunately, a lot of times Karats are found where the focus will not move at all. Or if it does, it requires a tremendous amount of effort. And if you encounter that, do not force it. Do not just try to use brute strength, because the metal, believe it or not, is actually weaker than the goo is. And you can actually bend the focus arm, permanently damaging the camera. There are people who can fix these. if you're willing to go through all the hoops of finding an AGFA Karat, we're talking post-war, but not the AGFA 4, not the Karat 4, I mean. And you could tell the Karat 4 because it's a completely different viewfinder. That one's a traditional combined image viewfinder, rangefinder. I mean, these cameras are wonderful. Great lenses, excellent build, Kodak Retinal build quality, the great viewfinder, and assuming you can get them relubed and cleaned and everything, they're wonderful to shoot.
Well, Mike, or that's focused by strut, isn't it? It's not a front cell focus.
Correct. So when you change your focus, you're actually moving the entire shutter and lens assembly moves forward and backward. It doesn't rotate.
Is it the one with two round knurled knobs that you slide sideways to focus?
No, it goes up and down.
Okay, all right. And there's only one. Is there one or two?
There's just one.
Okay, all right. The one I'm trying to remember that there was one that had two, one on each side.
Like a Ricoh diacord, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That's a TLR.
Yeah.
That's got paddles on both sides. There's probably 35 millimeter cameras that have that too.
Those bind up also, but the one you have seems to move freely.
Yeah, this one works really well. I never had to service this one. I have a couple. This one has the Karat Xenon 2.8. I have a couple with the 2.0, the Xenon. I think you could also get these with Rodenstock lenses too. And I don't know if they had Zeiss lenses. I can't remember if they did or not. But Comper shutters, great viewfinders, great build quality, a lot of fun to use. If you can get one of these working, this is one of the best 35 millimeter rangefinders I think ever made, especially for people like me with terrible vision.
Well, we covered AGFA.
Yeah, we did. There we go. Hey.
All right, I got to throw my favorite camera out there.
Go ahead. What is it, Will?
The Isolet.
The Isolet.
This one I just got actually like really cheap at a thrift store. And it's the Isolet 3, which I always wanted because it has the rangefinder. But the lovely green goo in the focus is solid. So I got to work on that.
I mentioned earlier that AGFA owned Ansco, and they cross-branded a lot of the cameras together. And they did that with the 35 millimeters. Like I said, there was an Ansco Karamat, but there was a ton of Ansco branded versions of the 6x6 folders. And those are actually really good cameras. In fact, Paul, one of the very first episodes, there was a young man who joined us that said that he really wanted to try 6x6. He didn't have a huge budget. He's like, what could I try if I want to shoot a 6x6 medium format on a small budget? And I recommended the Speed X. Or was it the Speed X? It was the Ansco version.
I sent him one.
It was the Speed X. I listened to that the other day.
Yeah, Mark Peterson.
That's the same as the Isolet. Yeah.
The Isolet, yep. The Isolet, the Speed X is the same camera. Yours is the rangefinder version. They made a lot that were scale focused that are really, really good. Excellent, fun to use. And even going back to some of my earliest reviews on my site, like in the first 10 cameras I ever did, one I shot was an Ansco B2 Commander, which was literally just a blinged up SpeedX, but it was wonderful. And I remember the first time I ever saw the images that I got out of that camera, I couldn't believe how good and how sharp 120 film looked compared to what I was used to seeing from 35 millimeter. I mean, it was a revelation to me.
And it's really aerodynamic too.
Yeah, they're really great cameras.
It's got the that hold yours up, Will, if you got it there.
Yep.
The way the top plate is designed, it arcs and curves. It's really attractive camera.
They're gorgeous cameras, and like all the details on it, even like opening the door. I was looking at it earlier. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's all like hash marked on the. It's just this tiny little detail that just looks kind of nice. But
the SpeedX had sort of a rubberized, non-slip coating covering on them. Did the AGFA have the same thing?
No, this one's actually, I don't know, it's like a really nice cloth, I think.
Sort of smooth, okay.
And it's like ribbed all the way across it. So it actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. There's really a very well-designed camera.
Really pretty. I think the other one, and I don't have one, I think, is there an AGFA like Viking? That's like a 6x9?
Viking. Mm-hmm. That's a folding bed camera, I believe.
Oh, okay.
The Viking. That's a big one. If you're sticking with 6x6 and your wallet is getting heavier, you have this. The Super Isolet.
That's the one.
Which is a really fantastic camera. Prices on them, AJ, don't bother looking. They're quite high. But if...
Well, I don't have one.
Well, and even worse is a camera called the AGFA Automatic 6.6, which had aperture priority auto exposure on a 6x6 medium format camera from 1956. I don't think they made too many. I think really quick brought up the Camera Wiki page. It says less than 5,000 of these were made, but prices on them are insane. I actually don't know anybody who has one, but they're beautiful cameras, auto exposure from a 6x6 folder, but they're for the deep pocketed collector.
I'm curious what folks might recommend from any brand for a 6x9 folder that's doesn't have to be dirt cheap, but
Voigtlander Bessa 2.
The Bessa is the top of the line, but the Kodaks are the bang for the buck. They made the last of them was the Tourist, but there was Tourist and there was Vigilant. Some of those have good triplets, and some of them have good 4-element. If you can use 620 film, that's the downside.
Actually yesterday I just finished another one. The first one seemed to have some pinholes in the baffle. It had light leak. That's why I shot another one with a lower ISO to see if really it was that, or if it was me who fumbled on the respooling.
Well, and then you touched upon one of the reasons the Tourists aren't recommended that often is they are hard to find with good bellows. Unfortunately, nearly all folding Kodaks, excluding the Stuttgart ones, almost always have bad bellows. And that's where Paul's recommendation of the Voigtlander Bessa. The Zeiss Icontas are wonderful cameras. If I was on a budget and I'm looking for a pretty good made 6x9 folder, the KMZ Moskvas, the Soviet copy of the Zeiss Icontas are actually quite good too. That was one of the KMZ cameras that came out of the Soviet Union that usually has pretty good build quality, excellent lenses, and takes really excellent images.
And what about the East German Zeiss 6x9s? I can't remember what they were called. Zeiss Jena or something.
After the war, East German Zeiss Icon did continue making some 6x9 folders. They used names like the Urkona. There was another one called the Exona, I think it was. These were relatively lower end versions of the pre-war Icontas. I don't think any of them came with rangefinders, but in terms of the post-war Icontas, those continued to be made in West Germany and Stuttgart. And they produced Icontas, super Icontas, actually, with rangefinders in 6x4x5, 6x6, 6x9. I think the 6x6s made it all the way to the end of the 50s, maybe even 1960s. So yeah, they remained pretty popular during that time. But in terms of East German 6x9 post-war, some of the, what I like to call the lesser brands like Balda produced cameras like the Baldix. Certo had one. I'm sure there was a Welta too somewhere in there as well. And they were good, but nothing spectacular. To answer the original question, I agree with Paul 100%, the Voigtlander Bessas.
The Bessa 2, just the Bessa 2. The earlier Bessas were fine too, but the Bessa 2 had a really good rangefinder. And they made it with 3 different lenses, and it's a sliding scale as far as what the cost will be.
I was going to say I'm seeing a wide range on prices, which partly might be conditioned, but yeah, I'm guessing it's more the lens.
It's the lens, because the bodies are going to be the same. The I can't remember, Mike. It was the Ultron. What were they?
I'm seeing a color Scopar and a Heliar.
I have the Apolanthar, and that's the big dog. But there were 2 others, color Scopar and the Heliar. No,
I see a Heliar.
You could get them with the Heliar. Honestly, the Scopars are fine. I mean, you're going to get a little bit of softness in the corners, but it's the kind of softness that I like, that people are looking for. They're great. You do not need to spend the extra money on an Apple Lanthar Bessa.
Because the Lanthars are multiple thousands, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul had one, and it was actually difficult.
Have it.
He can't sell it.
I've been trying to sell it.
You could give it away, but don't do that. For as highly regarded as they are, they're difficult to sell.
They're way overpriced as far as what people are asking for them. It's the problem. But
yeah,
I just saw the prices of the Bessa 2, and I'm happy with my Bessa 1.
Well, it's just, what do you really need a rangefinder? We're past the 2-hour point, so I just wanted to kind of, does anybody have any questions or last minute comments for us?
The last AGFA made in Germany was the AGFA Compact Electronic. It's a beautiful small camera with a motor. The lens goes in and out. I have one, but it's in the box.
Doesn't that have the logo that looks like it's like a 7-segment LED?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen those. Those are neat.
Very sturdy, a little bit heavy, with a flash attachment, and the red shutter, the red color shutter, and the lens is very, very good, a Solinar. And I tested this camera, I use it, and I really enjoy it because it leads leader out of the film.
That's a nice feature.
Fernando, what was the model again?
Yeah, AGFA Compact 35.
It was also called the 935.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say before the show is over, I wanted to thank Paul for the wonderful 2 F3 screens I purchased from him and a Miranda D. I found the Miranda D here in Winnipeg, and I purchased from Paul a waist level magnifying finder for the Miranda D. And I want to thank Paul. I never would have thought I'd ever find that finder.
And oddly enough, I never thought I would sell it.
Well, I tell you, Paul, you made my day when I saw that finder. That's the thing, I would never find that in Winnipeg. Finding the Miranda D here was amazing, but finding the finder on your site is just fabulous. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
And we're going to do much more business, I'm sure.
Well, it's a good place to stop. I didn't get a chance to share my story about my Contaflex TLR that I had CLA'd, nor about my trip to Texas. I guess we'll have to save that for our next episode, which we're sticking with the every 3-week cadence, which means that the next episode will be recorded on Monday, August 18th. As has been the case for the past several episodes, we don't have anything actually planned. I know that we had wanted to get Dr. David Jentz to come back on the show and do a wide open Kodak Retina episode. Since we kind of touched upon him here, maybe we'll see if we could work that out. We've had a few other topics on the slate. There was a guy, a podcaster that does a lot of fascinating vintage digital camera reviews we may try to get on. We're also coming up on our 100th episode, which if we follow the same cadence should be early October. So we're trying to think of something special to do for that one too, because never in a million years would I have assumed we'd be doing this show for 100 episodes. As always, the topics and discussions on the Camerosity podcast are determined, influenced, and dictated by you, as can be seen by this AGFA episode in which we spent roughly, a third maybe of the show talking about what we wanted to talk about. But that's okay, because that's the greatest strength of the show. Mike Litwin is very complimentary about us, and a lot of people have talked about how we've negatively affected their bank account balances, but that's all part of the fun of what we do for this show. So thank you guys for coming. I hope everybody has a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mike, you guys are wonderful. I just want to Camerosity is such a great resource for anyone getting into film and cameras, and all you guys, all the hosts. I download all your podcasts and I listen to them, and I go back all the time when I want to research something to get more information. I'm a Nikon collector. I'm 66. I started off with Nikon in my early 20s, so I've been buying Nikons for all my life, and I've accumulated a few. But like I've said to you before, you're a bad man, Mike, and Paul's an enabler. I call Paul the enabler. He's a great guy. I'm doing business with Paul right now, and he's a great guy. But Anthony, all you guys, Theo, you're a wonderful photographer. I was looking at your shots from Vietnam, and they're so impressive. They're just wonderful. And Anthony,
thank you.
Everything. All you guys it's just a great podcast. Keep it up. Well, Mike, you're a walking encyclopedia of camera knowledge, but this show is just this podcast. It just for sparking interest in cameras. It's amazing.
Thank you, Mike. Your commission check will be in the mail by the end of the show.